right, in the room today, we have Tim Silk. Tim, if you can just wave to all the audience today. Tim Silk is our Associate Professor of Marketing and Behavioral Science Division. He's also our track champion for the Product and Service Management. Professor Silk specializes in brand management and new product development and works with organizations to identify market opportunities and bring new products to market. He's an award-winning teacher and researcher and has delivered executive programs to leading organizations for the past 20 years. He has served as an advisor on consumer behavior, brand management, brand strategy, disruptive innovation, product development, and pricing to organizations such as Best Buy, Brand Finance, McKesson, and Visa. Professor Silk has served as a behavioral expert and public policy advisor for government organizations, including the Competition Bureau of Canada, U.S. Federal Trade Commission, U.S. Department of Energy, and U.S. Government Accountability Office. Thank you for joining us today, Tim.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, and moving on to the agenda today. So in the first about 10 minutes or so, I will do a program overview, just give you some information about the program itself and our application deadlines coming up, as well as admissions requirement. And then I'll pass this to Tim to talk about the PSM track. And then we'll leave about 10 minutes or so for the Q&A. So this is a roadmap for you if you're interested in joining our full-time MBA UBC MBA program. And the program usually starts in the last week of August each year and spans a total of 16 months. For those of you coming to Vancouver from overseas, I recommend arriving at least a month before the program starts. This will give you time to settle in, explore UBC's campus, and enjoy Vancouver's best weather, usually it's during the summer. In September, we start with the foundation courses, including some of the courses like accounting, economics, marketing, as well as practical classes such as leadership development and decision-making for managers. As you progress through the courses, you will engage in integrated case learning, a core method used throughout the program. Your first fall semester ends with a local consulting project, providing a strategic opportunity for you to build your resume. Now, this will take you to the Christmas break. And after the holiday break, you will begin your career tracks. There are 5 designated career tracks, each with a different focus, plus a custom track where you can mix and match courses from the various tracks. We'll dive into these tracks in the next slide. In February and March, you will undertake International Consulting Project and Global Immersion Experience. Then you will have a spring break. So you have about 1 week. You can either stay in the country that you did your GIE, or you can come back to Vancouver. Now, after that, you will enter into the exciting phase of the MBA journey, which is the summer experience month. So during that period, you can choose 3 options: an internship, an entrepreneurial project, or an industry project. Then you have the chance to go to the Global Network for Advanced Management Week, or you can do a global exchange in the last semester. So some of the tracks that you can see here, I'm not going to dive into all the tracks. So today we'll be talking about product service management, and we'll give you some information about the tracks, including some of the courses and potential careers that you can land post the MBA program. Just recap of our students this year who attended some of the GIE locations. So for example, if you are interested in natural resources, you potentially could choose Chile. If innovation and finance interests you, you could select Singapore. So usually you will be giving 3 locations in the fall, and you can rank them from 1 to 3. And we'll try our best to match your priority. Just in a summer experience month, as I mentioned, you have 3 options. Now, the internship is a paid internship opportunities. Usually the average salary is about $4,700. I know that if you attended Mary's session for the career outcome, You will know that last year we actually have a higher internship salary at about $5,000 per month. Right, so moving on to the next one, the Global Network for Events Management, which was spearheaded by the Yale School of Events Management. So if you're interested in attending some of the schools on this slide, you can start your conversation with our global manager earlier on, and you can choose your school. Now, there's only certain spots available for the UBC MBA students, so make sure that you have a conversation with our global manager earlier, so you can choose these locations. And each location, each school will have a special project. For example, UBC will have climate and sustainability focused courses. So it's up to you to choose what you're interested in. And you also will have opportunity to do a global exchange. So the global exchange allows you to choose one of the 34 exchange partners across the world. Again, it's obviously you need to make sure that you have a choice in mind, and then you can have that conversation earlier on with the global manager. You can do half semester or the full semester in your last semester of your study here at UBC Sauder. Some admissions requirement, I won't dive into that. Again, you can actually go on the website and take a look at those requirements. Two important components I want to mention here is that it's a good idea to reach out to your referees well in advance to let them know about your MBA plan. Be sure to choose individuals who can provide a detailed, positive reference letter. And most importantly, those who will be responsive to the emails that we send to them. So for GMAT, I know some of you potentially may have completed GMAT a few years ago. As long as within the 5 years time frame, and the score is still eligible for us to assess, then it's okay. We can take those GMAT Classic score. So for GMAT Classic, you need to meet minimum 550. And each section need to meet the 50 percentile. We also offer the GMAT GRE waiver options. So if you are eligible, you can see those criteria on the website and on this slide as well. If you're eligible to apply, make sure that you use the statement of qualification form that we provided on the website and submit that as part of your application. Some important deadlines coming up. We have the first application deadline, October 15th, which just less than a month away. Make sure that you join our events coming up. I will have the Ask Me Anything section to answer any questions you may have about the application process, how to submit the strong application. So make sure you join my event on October 10th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Okay, so without further ado, I will pass to Tim.
All right, thank you. I've got the screen share up, so I think you should be able to see mine. So welcome, everyone. My name's Tim, and if you join us next year for the program, I'll be one of your faculty. I've been here 18 years. I've been track champion for 12 years when we actually started the track, so I was part of that initial group. So my goals here as we go through this, I'll just change the screen here. Want to give you a sense of how students are able to pivot their careers. I think, your biggest interest is you want to transform your future. So my agenda here is I thought I'd start with a little story of one of our past students. I'll show you a little video, which is on the website as well. And then I'll talk a little bit about the track so you understand kind of its structure. But what I want to do then is almost kind of like a sample class. I'm going to show you something that we teach you in the program in the track from the tech product management course that I teach, and then show you how we worked with an organization to basically introduce the best practice. And so it's a local tech company I'll show you. And the whole point here is that like a doctor, right? You want to use your training. If you don't use your training, it's malpractice. And taking the MBA is really just about equipping you with really strong best practices and analytic skills so you can transform organizations, which might include, running your own company someday. So I like to make this interactive, and we're a small group. So feel free to turn on your mic and just ask a question at any point. You can interrupt me. I'd rather this be like a class. You can type stuff in the chat, but because I'm kind of operating a few screens here, It's a little bit harder for me to monitor the chat in real time. So don't be shy. And, during the pandemic, we did a lot of teaching online. I'm comfortable with it, but, we're a small group. So just feel free to turn on your mic and ask a question anytime. We're going to go to about 10 to 6, and then we'll have 10 minutes for Q&A from 5:50 to 6 o'clock. So there'll also be Q&A at the end, but feel free to ask anything as you go through. So this is Kimberly Zaitlin. She was in the PSM track years ago, and she was originally from Toronto, moved out west to do her MBA, and you'll see her story. She had a real interest in moving to Europe, but it was also open to living in the US, and she really wanted to be in a tech hub, in a tech center. So one of the attractions of our program is we have a very strong tech community here in Vancouver, kind of punches above its weight. Part of that is because we attract world-class people from all over the world because we're such a beautiful city. People will come to school here. Many people choose to stay in Vancouver. And so you have an incredible labor pool. If you're an entrepreneur or you're a startup or you're an early stage company, there's a lot of talent. We've got a very strong engineering school, a medical school, biotech, sciences, as well as business and law. So given that the university is so strong in so many areas, we just have a lot of really, really bright, young, highly motivated people that choose to stay in Vancouver. I'd also advocate for you to consider leaving Vancouver, but it is a great city. So I'll show you this little video, which is the same video you can see on the website. I'll just break out here for a second, and if you have any questions after seeing the video, you can let me know.
What I learned throughout the process, it's about developing leaders in a way that's right for you. I knew going into the MBA that I wanted to get into consumer tech. And I thought that going to Sauder, I'd be able to get exposure to tech companies in Vancouver, learn more about ideas that people were bringing to life, companies that they were going to work for, and the vastness of the technology industry. I wanted to go do something bigger. And for me at the time, I thought I needed to leave Vancouver to go do that. And Sauder allowed me the opportunity to doing the exchange in HEC Paris. For me, that was a test to find out if studying abroad for 6 months would fulfill my international kind of desires or I'd want more. And at the end of that program, I absolutely wanted more. Studying at HEC Paris, going to work for eBay London, coming back with eBay to San Francisco and eventually landing at Salesforce. Absolutely, I think that the Sauder MBA accelerated my career. I didn't have a job when I went to London, but I used my Sauder connections, I used the connections from the exchange program, and I was able to translate that into a role in product marketing with eBay. The network is so much more than your class. You become a part of this community, and being surrounded by this group of motivated people that are doing interesting things, it pushed me even harder, and I wouldn't be here today and in this role in San Francisco without all of those experiences that have helped start that next step of my career in tech. I'm Kimberly Zaitlin, and I work with Salesforce. I'm a senior product marketer for the Community Club.
Okay, so that's just one success story, but it's just great seeing all the students in that video. Those are all my former students. We're not here to, my role as track champion, I'm not trying to promote or sell a track. And I know some of you may have attended other track champion events. We just want to get the students in the right curriculum. So you're going to have a very broad-based training in the core curriculum that you do at the start of the program. If you choose a two-a track, it's really just to help get you the right skill set for employers. So if it hasn't been explained, these tracks were built with the input of our business community, our alumni, and the employers worldwide that have a strong track record of hiring from us. And we asked them, what are the gaps that you see when you're hiring from the other top universities across the world, as well as ours? What skill sets are being developed in a way that you are happy with, and where are the gaps? And these curriculums are really basically there to fill these gaps. So the product service management track, I used to be a brand manager before I became a professor a long time ago. So I've done the job, right? And I've also worked in product marketing, like tech products. And so, it's a lot of varied skill sets. It's a multidisciplinary training that we're giving you. But we know it's a fit. And so if you're interested in working in product management, services industry. I'll show you the major industries that we feed into. But there's more than one path, right? You can also take coursework in entrepreneurship. You might want to do stuff in climate track. You've got that freedom to build the courses that you want, but this track was designed because we know what it takes to get people into these types of roles. Okay. So feel free to ask anything as we go through. So what is the product service and management track? The best way to describe it is it's a hybrid. We're giving you strong training in operations management, and we're mixing that with strong training in marketing. Now, there's obviously other core areas in terms of finance, operation, or OBHR, and strategy, but it's these blending of these two skill sets. And so the reason why we kind of have that back arrow in the orange is that you got to understand the back-facing activities in terms of how the organization is running its supply chain and its production systems, but also be market-facing. That's the blue arrow going to market in terms of identifying where there are gaps in the market, gathering customer and consumer insights, and basically then going to the market with products or services. So I think product management gets more attention, but we have very strong service sectors as well. And so that's why we call it product and service management. But if you want to say be a product manager in the tech industry, this would be a good fit. But it's not the only thing. And I'll show you the industries where the students frequently go. So we're basically looking at how do you develop and launch products in the market? How do you manage them through the product lifecycle? How do you know when to discontinue a product, take it out? And you're managing a portfolio. So it's like portfolio management finance, but you're using products and services to extract profits from the market and obviously add value to society in the same way. And our school is very strongly positioned on rigor, respect, and responsibility. Responsible business is essentially the core of our approach. And so how can we do this to make the world a better place as well? So couple track highlights here, and then I'll get into a little sample example of what we do in the courses. Process fundamentals, market research, and supply chain management are 3 required classes in the track. They're the only 3 that are required. And then you can fill with many set of electives that you choose to. The reason why these 3 are required is because we know from employers and from our alumni, these have to be there, right? There's lots of things that you could do on top of this, but if you can't do these 3 things well, you're not going to be successful in these types of roles. So the process fundamentals is really about how information and people and products flow through systems. And it's very much comes from supply chain management and logistics. But it's great if you can design a great product or service, but if you cannot produce it optimally in a way that allows you to be profitable, then you will not survive. The market research is the market-facing side in terms of like how do I identify gaps in the market? How do we interface with both business to business and business to consumers? As you're probably aware, we have an incredibly strong world-class faculty, so you're going to be very well trained in these areas. And on the supply chain management side is essentially that, managing the supply chain. So these things are kind of like the must-haves, and then you can augment them with additional things. So here's a list of electives. I'll move past this quickly, but it just shows you like we have an incredibly strong course offering. I also think what's unique about our program, we are a small MBA program. Our cohorts are usually around 100 people. There's not many top schools with small cohorts. In addition to that, very few top schools with small cohorts that can offer this number of course offerings. So data visualization, consumer behavior, tech product management. I teach tech product management, I teach brand management, and I teach the new product development. Those are my areas of focus. But we have world-class people in all these areas. And so you have a lot of choice. Obviously, you can't fit everything into your schedule, but you've got a lot of offerings, and these courses are world-class and up to date. So if you're thinking about career opportunities, which I'm sure is of interest, these diagrams kind of represent the different directions you can go. So because you're going to have strong operations training, some of our students choose to focus in that area. These are extremely well-paying jobs. They're far above market average in terms of, if you look at across the MBA, they are above median pay. And a lot of people don't have strong exposure to the operations side prior to the MBA, just looking at the students' backgrounds. So if you wanted to work in any of these roles, we can definitely get you there. And as I'll mention later, we are a port city. We're the 3rd largest port in North America. We are a huge transportation logistics hub. And so there's lots of local opportunities here, both in terms of sea, land, and air. On the other side, you can specialize in marketing because you're going to get strong marketing training. And there's lots of roles, obviously, that you can look at, but we don't want to just train you for the local market. We want to train you for global. But there is a lot of opportunities here. And then some people take more of a hybrid role where they're really integrating both of these areas. So just know that if you wanted to specialize in marketing or in operations, you have that option. If you wanted to be more of a general manager and product management, you have that as well. Those are just examples of the actual job titles that our students achieve. Okay. Here is a small sample of full-time and summer placements. So as you know, you're going to have an internship in the summer. These are the types of employers that are regularly hiring, both in internship and full-time roles. It's only a sample. There's obviously many more, but it's a representative of these kind of key industries that we have. So again, some of these roles were operations focused, some of them were more integrated, some were more marketing focused, but those are actual job titles of our summer interns. And so here, I just wanted to show you, because some of you may not be that familiar with our city. We are a strong tech hub. And so we have big names like SAP and Amazon, but we have a ton of mid-size, high growth industries. And I could name these companies, you wouldn't know them. But if I just encourage you to do a Google search of, top tech companies in Vancouver, you're going to see all these names you've never heard of, because we are essentially a petri dish for innovation, right? As I mentioned, we have such strong people in all these different fields that come here. So these are all firms that have a track record of hiring with us. In the apparel industry, we are a hub. We are a leadership hub. So Aritzia, Arc'teryx, Lululemon had offices, Herschel, and you've also got other global players that have offices here, but those are some common names. We are a huge healthcare hub. So if you want to make the world a better place by saving lives, this is a place where you can do it. We have numerous healthcare authorities. Because we're in a public health system. So Vancouver Coastal Health, Provincial PHSA is Provincial Health Service Authority. Those are just two big employers in healthcare. You also have private companies like McKesson, the world's largest healthcare company, the 12th largest company in the world on the Fortune 100. Abbott Laboratories, Johnson & Johnson. As I mentioned, we're a big transportation center. So you've got large shipping and logistics companies. They've got the Port of Vancouver as well. And then you have all these other industries that don't really fit in these boxes, but EA, large gaming company, their headquarters is right by my house. TELUS, large telecommunications company. Intuit Software. Stem Cells Technologies, a biotechnology company. Best Buy, large retailer. So there is a lot of activity here. And we also have obviously big employment outside of the local area. So let's talk about what you're going to learn in the track. One of the courses that's popular is tech product management. And I teach tech product. I teach basically best practices in marketing, but as applies specifically to like tech companies oftentimes struggle with this. A lot of these tech companies have great people, but they come from technical backgrounds such as engineering or life sciences, and they've had no exposure to business school, right? And so many of them might be like your background. And so they don't realize like, oh, we have these best practices that will actually make them much more effective. So Stoco, I'll go to their website in a moment, is this local company. And this is a shot of some of their advertising. They make this knee brace that is integrated with steel cables into an athletic tight. And you can go on the website, check them out. They're pretty interesting. They are a local company that was started, and they have some ex-Lululemon executives on their board of directors, one of which reached out to me and said, we're struggling and we need some help. And so I hired a few students to help me, ran a full-blown segmentation study. I'm going to start by showing you what their kind of marketing had looked like. I'll show you this video, and as you can see, you've got a lot of representation of Lululemon type of customers that would be kind of mid-20s to mid-30s, athletic types. And as we discovered, this actually wasn't their target market. It's what the company thought was their target market. They've been reasonably successful selling their product, mostly through online channels. And so they didn't really know who was buying the product. And I'll just show you an example of their advertising here. So it's a good demonstration of the product, but if you look at the personification, I mean, these people are kind of, young athletic types. And interestingly, that's actually not the target market for the product. They didn't know that at the time. And so they've been, spending a fair amount on marketing and been doing reasonably well, but sales were tapering off and they were very, very kind of worried about, what does the future hold? One of the things that we'll teach you in the coursework is if you're going to do a roadmap for new product development, you want to explore and validate the market first. These are the first two stages. And what a lot of companies do, and especially entrepreneurs are guilty of this, is they really rush into the design stage. I'm circling here, stage 3. Why? Well, that's the fun part, right? Let's design something, let's create something. But ultimately, they don't fully understand the market. And they're basically using what we call self-referential thinking to drive their product design. Like, what do I want? What do I think the market wants? As opposed to actually purely exploring and validating the market. So what I do is I teach social science methods from anthropology and sociology, which normally wouldn't be represented strongly in a business school curriculum, and be like, look, if you're going to try to identify a gap in the market and develop a product or service, you have to start with an anthropology approach. And yes, you can use customer input, but you kind of see here, like, exploring the problem using market discovery best practices. What isn't done very commonly is this kind of phenomenology of observation and also doing these exploratory narrative interviews. So this is just a couple slides from my course where I'm like, I actually teach, and I do some of this in the new product development class as well, which I'm teaching right now. And if I can teach you to be a strong social scientist, you will better and fully understand the market problem. And that is, it's about the customer's jobs to be done. So this is just an example of the articles that we assign. Everything is applied. I don't use textbooks. And it's really about bringing social science and economics and psychology together. So in this article, Know Your Customer's Job to Be Done, it's like, people don't care about your product or service. They're just trying to get a job done for themselves. They're trying to get to some type of end state, get an outcome. And the more you understand that end state and outcome, the better you can design. And in terms of customer innovation on the right, when you ask people for feedback, you'll get information, but it's very limited in terms of its insight for design. People tend to focus on the features that they like or dislike. They don't talk about the why. So I will teach you how you can basically uncover blind spots that you and your competition have that you don't even self-aware that you have. And this is why this stuff is so powerful. Like, development will come later, but you're going to have a deeper understanding of the problem. And because these methods are not heavily used in the business world, you're not in a rush because you see things that no one else is even seeing. Okay. So it's really, really powerful stuff. So one of the things I talk about is what we call phenomenology. Phenomenology is just the definition of like how people experience life. And as a social scientist, if we can be along for the ride, there's things that we'll identify and discover that people can't even tell us because it's below their level of even consciousness that it's going on. So I give them this article, an anthropologist walks into a bar. It's a great article. And I'm going to do some storytelling now on the company called Lego, right? You might know Lego is a children's toy company. And I'll use this to kind of show how this great, very successful company with very smart people was running into trouble. And even though they've got unlimited resources and big budgets, they still didn't fully understand the problem. And in fact, looking at big data got misled. So here's a little graph. It's like, you know how hard it is to find a photograph of like Lego characters with a negative sales chart in the background? So that took some doing. But in the late 90s, the company was really struggling. And if you looked at what the big data was showing, and the big data is not wrong, but as we explained, you can use big data, but it doesn't explain the why behind the data pattern. It doesn't tell you why people are behaving the way they are. So we knew that video game sales were up, active play amongst children was down, diagnosis of hyperactivity and attention deficit disorder was on the rise. There was this belief that people had lower attention spans, their sales were clearly down. And so all of this converged into a set of assumptions that management made, but they never actually validated that those assumptions were correct. They probably weren't even self-aware that they were assumptions. They just probably thought they were conclusions. And like, look, kids want faster paced play. They don't have the patience to sit around and play with plastic bricks anymore. Maybe we need to pivot our business. And so based upon that, they actually went into video game production, and they also went into these kind of toys that weren't the same as the traditional Lego toys that allowed a lot of creativity and exploration. There's really only kind of one way you could build these Bionicle toys, and it was a tie-in with a video game, and it was a disaster. The firm went into even greater losses, and so here's your Lego executive not too happy, and they were extremely in trouble financially. And so, amongst other things that happened, they fired the CEO and they hired this gentleman, Jorgen Nudstorp, is a social scientist that was appointed as CEO. He's like, look, we're at the end of the day, yes, we're a toy company, but the toy is the product. If we get back to the job to be done, we're not selling toys, we're selling play. This is about playtime. And do we actually understand playtime? Do we understand what children and their parents get out of playtime? He was just asking really fundamental questions that he felt they didn't really know that have the answers to. And so have we lost sight of what children get out of play? So what they did was they followed the prescriptions in the phenomenology article. They lived with families in both the United States and Germany. They went on shopping trips with the parents. They didn't just observe playtime, though. They observed what leads up to playtime. Like, people wake up in the morning, they start their day, and we need to be along for that ride. We need to understand not just playtime, what happens before playtime? How does the opportunity to play even come about and present itself? And then how does that decision get made as, are we going to go outside and climb a tree? Are we going to play a video game? Are we going to go to a friend's house? Are we going to play a board game? Are we going to play with bricks? And so it was purely immersive social science. It just happened to be done in a business context. What role does our product actually play in these people's lives? So they did long-term observations before, during, after play. They did tons of interviews, video and photo diaries. They went shopping with families. They studied toy assortments in stores. And they discovered some great insights. One of them was playtime is an escape. The children today have such massively packed schedules with helicopter parenting and band practice and sports and piano, and like, just leave the kid alone and let them play, right? Like, and some children are better than others at having stimulus or stimuli for play. And so one of the things that they learned was that some kids need context for play. Now, their strategic responses, our idea is to create a toy that prepares the child for life, appeals to the imagination, develops creative urge and joy of creation. And what was interesting was this was not a new strategic response. This is actually the 1955 mission statement that the original founder of Lego created. And they realized that they don't need to rewrite it. It is, in fact, still relevant. And we just need to understand the job to be done a little bit more. And so one of the big things that they realized was that, and here you see this photograph, some kids are so great with their imagination and power to just create a context for play. They can create this make-believe world on their own. Other children, however, need that context to be introduced to them. They need a seed. They need some type of catalyst. And the idea here is, well, there's lots of characters that already exist in this world that toys and movies and books have been based on. All we need to do is use that. And so there we can use licensing agreements as a context for play. So here are what they paid for these different licensing agreements. Spider-Man, Batman, Woody from Toy Story, Lord of the Rings, all these. And what was interesting was the licensing agreements were a very, very small cost. And it really, really drove. The white bricks there is the cost of the licensing deals. The revenues in blue, you can see how they are really, really tanking. And they brought in Jorgen and started the social science experiment, and then started doing more and more licensing deals. And it was a big hit. They did the movies, but what was interesting, they never expected the movies to be successful commercially. The whole motivation for the movies is kids are going to come home and want to play. The movies are creating a context for play. They're not supposed to displace the playtime. As it turns out, the movies were super profitable for them, which was just a bonus, but they were just seen as a marketing expense to try to motivate that playtime. So we can see here that the return on sales, not only did sales increase, but the return on sales went from being negative to being positive. And look at those profit margins. I'm talking about 32% return on sales. That's incredible. So it was a great turnaround story. But the point was, social science played the discovery role of really understanding that job to be done, validating the market opportunity, and helping them understand what they needed to do. So as we see here, in phenomenology, you just want to reframe things, right? So I'll just read this out verbatim. Human scientists base their research questions on phenomenology. This is the study of how people experience life. The goal is to understand the complex, subtle, and often unconscious ways in which people interact with their surroundings. So I love this example. Consider a chef and how they interact with the kitchen, their fellow cooks, the waiters, the food, and the guests, and the myriad of other aspects of their environment. Most of these interactions are below their level of consciousness in that moment. They open the fridge with their right hand. They yell in a certain tone of voice to the waiters. They use a different tone of voice to the cooks. There's a hierarchy there, right? They don't measure the amount of pepper that they put on the meat, but they know exactly how much is right. They taste the sauce with a little finger and knows exactly what it needs. The chef would be unable to accurately report on these moment-to-moment behaviors if you did a focus group interview. Focus groups are not going to reveal that. To see the patterns, you have to observe him closely, okay? Now, I love this line. If you're in the restaurant equipment business and sales are down, you're not going to learn much by asking the chef what they think about this product or that product. But if you get in that kitchen and you observe them for a few days, you're going to understand the chef's experience cooking. And that's what we do. This is the blind spot that every business will have if they're not using these techniques, because focus groups are heavily used, surveys are heavily used, but they're not using these other anthropology techniques. And so, yes, they're getting customer feedback, but they're not getting those moment-to-moment reports, okay? So what I do with my clients in my consulting, and what we also teach students and we do with companies, is on the left, list out what you think are your knowns. These are things that you think you know, and the two are the hypotheticals, and the three are the big unknowns. I show people this chart before I give them the phenomenology article, and I ask them to list their knowns, hypothetical, and big unknowns. Then I give them this article, and I have them relist it, and you can see a bunch of stuff shift from the left to the middle and the right. The number of things that they know shrinks, so they're like, yeah, you're right. I don't really know that. I think I know it, but I actually haven't validated it. And you realize that there's a ton of stuff that you actually don't understand about your market. Once you get over that, self-preservation motive of like, it's not about what you know, and it's not about being right. It's about being curious. It's about having wonderment. It's about wanting to explore that market and validate it. Then we're ready to do some actual work. So the lesson here is be careful about these untested assumptions. Many of us are not even aware of the assumptions we're making. And really be curious and like, what do you really, really know? And if we can strip away that self-preservation motive, we probably don't know as much as we think. So back to Stoco. Let's do a proper market segmentation, right? Do you really know who's buying your product and the motivations behind them? So let's look at the process that we followed right from the coursework, okay? We conducted 23 exploratory narrative interviews. You're going to learn what those are in the program. But what human beings are very good at is natural storytelling. Focus groups don't work because you're focused on specific questions and it's not proper exploration. But if I ask people, tell me the story about how you got into skiing and what does skiing mean to you? And at what point did you, have to stop skiing or you had an injury? We conducted a small sample, 23 exploratory narrative interviews. Every one of these interviews was like an hour long. Some people went on for 90 minutes. And I'll even play you a short clip from one in a second so you get a sense of it. These are all done by phone on a speakerphone in my office with the VP of marketing of the company with me so I could train them how to run these narrative interviews. And the goal here is we're not going to identify and converge on what the market wants. We're going to identify all the things that might possibly matter, all the goals and motivations in the purchase behavior, all the obstacles that mentally and emotionally stand in their way. And we identify these themes, right, that are driving the buying behavior and also driving non-buying behavior. We then design the survey. Now that we've explored the market properly, we know which questions to ask now. So now we develop our survey, which is a confirmatory technique. We sent that out. We got 110 responses, decent, but not that big of a sample size. And we ran what's called a cluster analysis, which is a statistical technique that you'll be taught to identify different customer segments in the data. And then we use those to drive the positioning and the messaging. So I'm just going to show you, I'm going to have you listen to a clip. This is a customer in Ontario talking about her ski injury.
magazine, and he came across that, I think was it Alison Forsyth? Is that who you had? The article was written and put in the Ski Cam magazine. Okay. It was one of the ski racers anyway, who had a knee injury, and she was bragging about it. So I thought, oh my gosh, maybe this will make me more confident again. And so we ordered them, and it did. It was amazing. I didn't think about my knee because I felt like I had a brace on it.
Okay, I'm just writing all this down.
It was more powerful for my brain than my leg.
It was more powerful for my brain than for my leg. And we captured that. And here it is. What you'll learn how to do is theme coding, social science. We identified themes around pain, but this idea of confidence, and there it goes right there. At 10:48 in the interview, it was more powerful for my leg. And we've got streams and streams of data of their life before Stoco, how they became aware of it, what are their obstacles for purchase, what's driving their purchase decision, what are their outcomes. We know these people like anthropologists study tribes. All right. So this is the actual results of a segmentation study. This is what you do. This is the best practice in marketing. And most companies have never segmented their market. In other words, they're reasonably successful, but don't really understand why. So I'll just walk you through this really briefly, just to give you an example. I mean, I know that, this is first exposure to it, but this is from the survey results that we got. I have this response scale. It's called a Likert scale in psychology, and I'm measuring attitude strength and attitude polarity. So with every statement that I'm going to share with you, you can give me a -3 for strongly disagree. You can give me a -2 for disagree, a -1 for somewhat disagree. You can be neutral and say, I neither agree nor disagree. 1 would be a somewhat agree, 2 would be agree, 3 would be strongly agree. So I ask a question, continue to participate in my sport is important to me. How did I come up with that question? Because it came out in the interviews, right? By doing these exploratory narratives, it came out naturally. And so as you will be taught on survey design and the art of asking questions, and we can see here that we've got 3 segments that vary in their strength here, but you can see here, this is the biggest common point of resonance, the best candidate for your marketing and your value proposition, because it scores pretty highly across all the segments. We've got this question, preventing serious injury is important to me. Interestingly, segment 1 doesn't have as strong a feeling on that as segment 2 and 3, right? Not being able to participate in my sport means life is less meaningful to me, right? Segment 3 is in strong agreement with that, right? I will do anything to maximize my performance. The company actually thought that performance was a key motivator, and it actually scored pretty weak across the board. And then segment 1 actually disagrees with that. So you've got a lot of variance and low resonance. This is not a good candidate for your marketing messaging, your value proposition. Managing pain is more important than maximizing my performance. Segment 2 cares about that. So we go through all this stuff, right? Wearable technology is cool. The company thought that would be a big attractor. It's pretty lukewarm. So we have this segment that we call play within reason. They want to get back to their sport, but they're not as passionate as the other segments. And they're a lot more price sensitive than the other segments. We look at down here in terms of I'll spend whatever it takes to stay active. They're like, no, I will not. Okay. So that's not going to be a very attractive segment. They represent about 20% of the people. Now there's this other segment. They're going to pay to play, but they also want to manage pain. They're more passionate about their sport. They're less price sensitive, and they're terrified of injuring themselves. Okay. So we can really talk about the kind of the pain management. And then you got this group that wants to pay to play. They're just like this group, except they don't care as much about the pain. Okay. And so across the board, these segments want to continue to play. Maximizing performance is not a key priority, and the technology is not a key motivator for purchase. That was all new information for the company, and that went against their hypotheses. So what they thought was their knowns was actually hypothetical. It was a big unknown, and they are wrong about it, right? These segments differ on 4 key dimensions: how badly they want to continue to play. Okay, segment 2 and 3 top the chart. Segment 1 is less passionate. Segment 2, the importance of injury prevention. They vary on that. The importance of pain management. What's interesting is these groups don't differ with respect to age, years of play, or past injury. And the way that we'd seen the advertising was not an accurate representation. This is not their target market. Their target market is median age 51 across the segments, so more 40 plus. Now, if we go to the company now we've got, look, that is their target. You know, this person's a little bit older, and look at these success stories, right? This is their target market. This was never represented in the marketing, and you can still have young people on your website, but you've got to have more of a mix, right? An orthopedic surgeon doing the review of Stoco. And if you look at one of the Plouffe sisters who was just in the Olympics in the 3-on-3 basketball is now a new customer and has given a review. So it's just to transform their marketing. And now they can actually say somewhere on here that they have more than 30,000 actual customers. Their sales have skyrocketed because their marketing became a lot more efficient and a lot more effective. So that's kind of the before and after story of Stoco. So that kind of wraps up just like a bit of a vignette. But what I've got here is just examples of all these students that changed their path, right? Shweta came from India. Alex was from the US. These people both went into tech product management. Same with Kareem and Nair. Yash and Ravina focused on operations management. Camille from South America. Maxim from Toronto, they went in operations management. Mark and Hannah both went into pure marketing roles. Vaughn and Juliana also into marketing roles. Manaka and Joe went into strategy. Shweta and Clea went into market research. Alyssa and Bobby were in communications. The list goes on, but there's a long track record. I mean, the people that have come before you are like you. You're just a different age cohort. And we're here to help you pivot and transform.